What if there was a show about traveling to parallel worlds, the same year, the same Earth, only different dimensions? A world where the Russians ruled America, or where your dreams of being a superstar came true, or where San Francisco was a maximum security prison. We started a podcast talking about it, inviting some friends to join us. Now we hope you all come along for the ride.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Fandom Entanglement. It is the 30th anniversary of Sliders, although at the time this is coming out, it's after the 30th anniversary, but we're still celebrating. We started with Invasion. We are talking about probably one of the best episodes of the entire series, in my humble opinion. I based on the ratings, I think it's like almost everybody's here. It is the 8th episode that aired, but it is the 10th in production order. It is post-traumatic slide syndrome, or PTSS, as a lot of people call it online for short. I'm Damon Sugameli, and this is my co-host, Mike Bloxam.
Hello, everyone.
Back with us again, we've got our good friend from the virtual seasons and Quantum Leap. We've got Erik Dreiling. Welcome back, Erik.
Hey, it's great to be back.
Yeah, you definitely wanted to talk about this. I'm like, okay, we're going to do it.
I jumped on it.
Yeah, you jumped on it.
I had to have it.
We have a very special guest with us. I've been communicating with you since we started this.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, people might not recognize the face behind earthprime.com, but you are one of the webmasters. You're like the head webmaster, or I'm not sure.
I'm the one that runs the website, but my writing partner Mike and I, we work on things together. There's also some other contributors like Ip Ing. He wrote a bunch of stuff like the Sliders Reborn, something like that, a couple years ago. But yeah, it's been primarily my baby since the late '90s. And
Well, anyway, Matt Hutaff,
Yeah.
welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Matt.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I figured this was a really great episode to kind of chime in. You got we got some extra stuff here with this. You got some production notes, and a lot of it's on your website. But I figured let's just talk about it. And people have been theorizing and had their own thoughts about this for 3 decades. So
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. Well, people to know Erik. Erik, you want to just remind everybody of your projects that you're working on, and I'll get back to you, Matt.
Sure.
Yes. I am a published author with Jumpmaster Press. The first 2 books in my Fractured Timeline series, Operation Silent Serpent and Twilight Hawk, are available for purchase, and book 3, Viper's Den, is currently still being written. A slow but sure process. So
Yeah.
Congrats. As a father of 2, I don't have a lot of time to sit and write, much less write out a book. So hats off.
Father of 1. Mike is a father of 4. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We're all fathers.
I didn't know it was a contest.
Oh yeah, well, you won.
All right, Matt. So, if you don't mind, if you want to give us a little history of how the website started, because this is, you have history with I think the old sci-fi stuff too. I feel right.
Yeah.
On the message boards and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
Or yours.
The message boards. Oh wow.
Yeah.
So the website started as just the travelogue. So it was Multi-Dim, which was a spoof on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That final book, Mostly Harmless. They had the bird that could travel between the dimensions. Mm-hmm. So I started to make a travelogue. And then there was a guy out there who had the Ultimate Sliders Companion website. That was the Expert. Shout out to him. Mm-hmm. He left the internet for a number of reasons, mostly to go on to become a successful TV writer. But I absorbed his website into mine, and then it's just gradually grown from there. With Mike and I, we wrote a bunch of reviews for the website. And the website actually, it's, Sliders is in many ways a transformative thing for me. I have gotten jobs from Earth Prime. I have written on television projects with Sliders writers. I've met producers from the show. It's really been something that has, like the ultimate what if for me. And I mentioned this in my obituary for Tracy Tormé last year is, how different would my life have been like if I hadn't watched the pilot back in 1995? So 30 years on, it's still amazing how Sliders still impacts me on a regular basis. I am in the process of working on a new version of Earth Prime. I started it last year. I do have a lot of material that I haven't had a chance to put up there. It's just, real life. I have a job, I have kids. And it's, I am working on it, but, hopefully it'll get out there soon. It's just one of those things where you have to find time to work on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen like a little bit of its evolution through the years. It's a great resource that we've been using, and with your permission, of course, you've been saying, oh yeah, go ahead and use some stuff from it. So, well,
like I said, a lot of the stuff is experts. I don't want to take all the credit for it. He was the one that put together the initial capsules for the first 3 seasons, and I just kind of carried that torch. But it's been a blast to track down stuff. Meeting all the guys that wrote the comics, getting all of the various comic scripts, meeting Anthony Marinelli, getting the music from him. Meeting and writing with John Povil, going through Paul Jackson's garage to get all of his Sliders memorabilia out of there. Really cool. It's been a lot of fun,
All right, well, so give us your best Sliders whisper, Matt.
All right. Well, I am getting over a cough, so hopefully this will be good. But
okay.
Sliders.
That sounds sounds a lot like from the show.
Well, I've had 30 years to practice it, right? So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Who? It's for the first 2 seasons. It was what was it? Robert K. Weiss did the whisper, right?
That's the rumor. And then John Rhys Davies took over for the 3rd season, and then 4th season was Jerry, and then a rotating list of people for the 5th season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just occurred to me that we never actually said that in any of the episodes. Who did the whisper originally? All right, well, let's get into it. Well, so I guess we'll kind of figure out what we're doing here with you got some, like we said, the production draft and stuff like that. We got a lot to talk about, so let's just try to get through it.
Please.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This originally aired May 3rd, 1996. And you might as well read the description that you have on earthprime.com, Matt.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
The Sliders finally land in the one place that none of them wants to leave, home. But Quinn is the only one that has doubts about their good fortune. Meanwhile, Arturo hatches a plan to use Quinn's discoveries to win a Nobel Prize, regardless of the cost to the rest of his traveling companions.
And then, so we have our usual cast: Jerry O'Connell as Quinn Mallory, Sabrina Lloyd as Wade Wells, Clevant Derricks as Rembrandt, Crying Man Brown, and John Rhys Davies as Professor Maximilian Arturo and the evil Arturo. Or evil or wrong Arturo, or whatever the fans want to call him. So, Mike, you might as well do the guest star things you usually. I see you added a lot of stuff, so
I've added a few things. Yeah,
it's usually your thing. So
yeah. Okay, so guest stars, we have Christopher Tabori as Dr. Whelan, and Damon, you're right. His name was Dr. Matthew Liebling on all the plaques on the wall, so there's a big goof.
He's credited as Whalen or Whelan or whatever. I'm looking at he's credited that way, but that was something I noticed.
Yeah, and you noted he was in Quantum Leap. He was Byron in One Strobe Over the Line, and that's why he was so familiar. Every time I saw him on screen, I couldn't figure out where he was from. But we also had Stacey Grant as Miss Von Beck. And our with cast, we've got Don McKay as Artie, who's reprising his role from the pilot. And he was also in 4 episodes of The X-Files as 4 different characters and 3 episodes of The Outer Limits. So he spread around his Vancouver acting there.
What else is new with the X-Files thing? It's like everybody.
Yeah, like everyone who's on Sliders was on X-Files. But we had Deanne Henry as Mrs. Mallory, also a reprising role from Into the Mystic. Same porch but different Earth. Carlton Watson as Sebastian Smith. He was also in Last Days. He played the Reverend in that episode. He was also in a great John Candy movie called Canadian Bacon, which is about the U.S. thinking Canada's trying to invade, which is kind of weird in today's context.
Oh,
Very topical.
oh, yeah.
Very topical. If you want a good laugh, though, check it out. We had Tom Pickett as, well, he's credited as Leroy Hopkins, but Damon, you think he's supposed to be Maurice Fish.
I could swear he was supposed to be. We've been saying that.
Yeah.
I think Matt has an answer later on. You have
I do.
Notes. Okay, so we'll get to that later on.
Cool.
I swear he was supposed to be the same character. And I've been saying it, that we're going to see him again. But anyway.
And finally, we got Brian Arnold as Harry King, who's another returning actor from Last Days, where he played a science correspondent.
What? Okay. Who is Harry King? Oh, the Larry King lookalike?
I believe so. The interviewer. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, and I guess I'll take it back. It's written by Nan Hagan. Is that how it's pronounced? Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. Written by Nan Hagan and directed by Adam Nimoy. Yes, that is the same Nimoy. He is the son of the late great Leonard Nimoy. This is his directing debut on Sliders.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And our worlds visited as it says on EarthPrime.com, or Earth Double Prime, and you said Shrink World.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much else to go on, right?
I know. Yeah. Other than that weird hairdo she had, I don't know what that's about, but
I know.
All right.
In some of the earlier drafts, there was a little bit more in terms of identifying what the world would be like, and I guess his room was festooned with a bunch of Egyptian artifacts. So maybe that was, there's some Egyptian thing going on there.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So first impressions, I guess. Well, Matt, you might as well. What was your first impression of it?
Oh, this is a 10 out of 10. This is probably one of the most important episodes of the show. It's. I mean, just the fact that people are still talking about whether the right Arturo slit 30 years later. I mean, that pretty much is all you need to say about it.
Yeah. All right, Erik, what's your first impressions?
Well, pretty much going off of what Matt said, this was one of the most impactful episodes of the entire series. To me, it felt more like it should have been a season finale episode, because it left that one question that's still being asked like 30 years later. It's just, there was so much weight to that story, and it was just very character driven. So by far, probably the best episode in the series.
Yeah. Well, I was blown away when I first saw it back in '96, and they hinted in the comics as well. There was all the the foreshadowing that they had been doing all season about there was a possible schism in the group and something going on. With one of them going to be betraying the other, and it all comes to a head here. And then I was fooled, I think, when I first saw it, but then once we get the reveal, it all makes sense.
Right.
So, an amazing cliffhanger that we're still talking about 30 years later. It really did feel like a season finale. It's hard to top this, Mike.
Yeah.
My gosh, I think we're all in agreement here. It's a fantastic episode. Definitely feels like a season finale. Perhaps this is the pinnacle of the whole series, but I really don't blame Rembrandt and Wade for wanting to stay. Quinn wants to believe but can't ignore the facts, and Arturo, well, depends on which Arturo we're dealing with. Wants to stay or wants to go. It's fantastic. Can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah. All right, so we got a production timeline on this. This is this is like kind of Matt's thing. I'm going to turn over some of the stuff to him. So
I mean, it's nothing too insane. I just thought it was interesting that one of the things that Tracy Tormé has said was that this was also a really important episode for him. And he was really eager to work on it. But when he got permission by the network to work on Invasion, he dipped out to work on that. And so I was looking at old scripts, different revisions and stuff like that. And I noticed that, true to form, essentially as soon as he wrapped the final version of Invasion, the next draft of Post-Traumatic Slide Syndrome was the same day. So Nan Hagan delivered her writer's draft on February 5th. And then a week later, February 12th, is when Invasion locked for the script, and then he immediately went on. And the first and second writer's revision drafts were February 12th, both from Tormé. And pretty much once you get the script out of Nan's hands and into Tormé's, functionally the script is structurally the same, but you can definitely tell that Tormé's voice is present as soon as he takes over. It just, if it reads much more like what we're expecting to see. And the writer's draft, I think this is Nan's first credited episode for the series. There are definitely elements in it that feel like she's trying a little too hard, and not in a bad way. Just there's a lot of references to previous episodes, whereas Tormé, he pulls it back. He makes the ones that are mentioned in the episode more impactful.
Okay.
But I thought that the thing that I thought that was the most interesting, and just in terms of the production timeline, is Nan herself was pulled off of writing an outline for Beauty World, which was that season 2 episode that was never produced, to work on this. So I've got the initial outline of Beauty World out there somewhere. Maybe we'll talk about it in another episode. I know I came across it because when season 3 came around, Nan was pitching old ideas that were in the writer's room from season 2 as potentially things that they could use for season 3. And since Beauty World had been purchased by the initial writer, they could have used it in season 3 at no additional cost. So I've got that, but basically once PTSS got the go-ahead, she was pulled off of Beauty World because they were struggling with that, and went and started working directly on this episode.
Wow. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, if there's any differences that come up in the script, if you can keep track of where they are in the notes, Matt, like maybe when we talk about that, then you can kind of throw in the differences in the draft, like what they were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just chime in when you see it. All right, so the alternate history for this, you might as well explain it, Matt. You got it.
I mean, there's not much to speak of. I mean, if you want to get really granular, you could say that sometime in the mid-30s is when this world peeled off from ours, because that's when they decided to paint the Golden Gate Bridge a different color. But aside from that, there's really not much in terms of major details. I mean, they would have to be small enough that it wouldn't impact how the sliders slide from this world. I mean, there's other questions that arise from that, but it's pretty much our Earth, with just some minor changes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we might as well get into the episode. I mean, we could just kind of start off with what you said right here.
Okay. So when I was able to make this happen, I haven't watched Sliders in a while. I just haven't had time. And I did watch the pilot with both my kids last year. They really enjoyed it. They thought the ending was really awesome. But, they're 10 and 15. They've got other interests. But I was watching Summer of Love maybe a week or two ago, just to kind of see if it holds up. And my little guy was watching with me. And when I was putting this on to watch, he wanted to watch it as well. So it was just interesting because he has next to no context for Sliders. I mean, he knows that I like the show. He knows the basics. Lord of the Rings fan, so he knows about Gimli. But really, he walked into this episode pretty much blind, and so it was really interesting to see him kind of identify that something was wrong with Arturo, even though he didn't know what was going on with him, didn't know personality-wise if he was behaving in character or out of character, and he called it. He called it really early on in the conference. In the conference room when Arturo was giving the press conference, he just kept asking me, "Is this the right Arturo?" And he didn't even know anything about whether or not there would have even been a second Arturo on this world. So the intuition was strong on this one. I thought it was really clever of him to be able to figure that stuff out, which made me feel like maybe I should have figured it out earlier when I was watching this for the first time.
The wraparound story with Rembrandt in the psychiatrist's office, I thought it was very well done, especially Rembrandt's, the way he told the story, of all his adventures. Like, he's just kind of talking to somebody he knew, and you can tell that the therapist was trying to hold back his surprised reaction to all these fantastical tales. And he's like, "And how did that make you feel? Yeah. How do you think? How would it make you feel?" It's like, we're not talking about my feelings,
right?
Yeah.
And it's just the relaxed way Rembrandt was just kind of getting it all off his chest. It got me thinking, if I was in his position, I'd probably need to see a shrink too, because all the crazy things that they had seen especially the Into the Mystic episode. That alone, you want to seek professional help after. So I thought it was the perfect way to tell such a weighted story. And it really adds to, well, the emotional like gravity of the situation where they're home and maybe they even noticed a few things that were off, but they're just telling themselves, oh, well, it's just all in my head, because the desire to stay home so bad kind of overrode their common sense, you know, like their perception of it, except for Quinn. You know, he was wanting to, like we were saying, but then he was pulling back. But with Rembrandt in the office just kind of talking like it was just his everyday life, which I guess by that point it was, it was just, it added, maybe they weren't going for it, but it was just a little bit of humor to it. So I thought it was a great way to narrate the story.
Yeah, and this is coming off of Invasion in production order, right? Yeah. So, you know, given what happened in Invasion, I would want to seek out some psychiatric help too.
Yes.
For me, that episode, the scene, and all the scenes really in the doctor's office, it just cracked me up that the guy has like a full, like a working fireplace. You know, he's in an office high rise. The establishing shot is an office high rise, but he's got a full working fireplace in there. Just to kind of set the tone.
So I do enjoy that they use these as a framing device with Rembrandt. I think it works very well. I also just, I mean, it doesn't take away anything from the episode. I kind of wondered if it would have been as effective to use like Wade's journal, like, because she was like keeping track of all the stuff, and it almost feels like a natural thing to say like, oh, well, this is like her journal thing, but then who would she have been talking to necessarily? So it was just something that I thought of, you know.
And then it would kind of weird out the whole situation where she's selling her journal, you know.
Yeah. So it probably just wouldn't have been as effective. I mean, but
also Rembrandt's character, he's not a scientist. He's not like he's the everyman. You know, he's the one that most of the audience can relate to. And seeing someone like him caught up in this journey, and he's still trying to like figure out what's going on, it makes it more relatable when you see him finally like talking to a shrink, but he's not like having a full mental breakdown. He's laying back, you see him collecting his thoughts, and it just kind of, in a way, it shows you that Rembrandt is maybe stronger than he gives himself credit for, because he's able to internalize all this, process it, and express it in a way where it's like, I don't know if I would have been that calm about it, maybe, but it really, like I said, I think it worked best using Rembrandt to kind of explain what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I think it's also a really nice touch to let you know that they indeed weren't on Earth Prime. They weren't on their Earth. That leaves us to find out how and why throughout the episode, though. So it's kind of hinted at the beginning. They think they're home, but they're not. I did also enjoy the reference to Into the Mystic when Rembrandt says that a crazy shaman was after Cue Ball's brain.
And that he was glad it wasn't his brain they were after.
Yes.
That's how you put it in perspective, right?
Yeah,
no, it's really cleverly done. I guess my only counter to that would be that there are definitely things that could have been included in an episode. Like on this world, you know, conversations with Wade and her parents, or with Kelly, and some of those things are addressed in the writer's draft, but they vanish in this. And to use, because I would say a good 5 minutes of airtime is this framing device, and I feel like, not that it's a bad thing, they could have done other scenes. You know, that's not to say that this wasn't a successful use of the framing device. I'm just when you're doing a very character focused episode like this, and you know, you basically have Kelly is mentioned for a brief moment when Wade is on the phone with her, and then you don't see her. The parents are barely there. You know, Mrs. Mallory is there for like a scene, maybe, and then at the very end. And like, again, the writer's draft does a little bit more service to this, but like they could have just spent a little bit more time like that. But it's hard. Like if that's the worst complaint I can muster, then they did a successful job with this episode.
Well, and then you said you noticed some other weird things in the teaser, Matt.
Well, there's when Mrs. Mallory comes down
Mhm.
and she says something to Quinn. She says something to the effect of, "I knew you would slide back on a weekend." And I thought, that can't be right. That's a really weird thing to say, but that was what was the closed captioning on both Peacock and on my DVD version.
Right.
So I'm assuming that she said something to the effect of, "I always knew you'd slide home."
Right.
But it's definitely 80 yard in, and it doesn't feel like it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because then you start to think about, well, how would she know that he slid? And that just you start thinking and asking more questions to yourself, like, why would she? What does she know? And then it's not addressed. So I didn't understand why that was added to it.
Yeah. But I noticed even after Quinn checked the gate and it wasn't squeaking, like Arturo, you saw that look on his face, like he still wasn't immediately convinced. He's like, not until he actually like addressed it, and then I like Remy's line that says it. So it's been 18 months since the pilot. So now it's been they finally, after 18 months of wandering, we were finally home. But this should be the first clue to the audience, at least, that they're not really home, because that gate shouldn't be squeaking, unless that was a really bad oil job that was done into the Mystic. I mean,
that is the worst litmus test for whether or not they're home.
Yes.
We've said that. Yeah, that's
But yeah, exactly, because the gate did squeak. That's what I said to Leanne. It can't be Earth Prime because that gate is still squeaking. But
and I kind of interpreted that part as more, they were still relatively like early on in their journey. Yeah, 18 months, year and a half, but they were still in that hopeful phase where any slide is going to take them home. So they're at that point still desperate to grasp onto anything that remotely resembles it. And then by the time you get into the later seasons, of course, they're like, yeah, we've been down this road. It's whatever. But here, I think it served the story well, whether or not they intended for it. I think it was a great way to still show that even though prior episodes, it kind of gave into despair a little bit about whether or not they're ever going to get home. This one here, that hope is still alive. It's still there. But the first tip off is the professor's attitude from the get-go. He's the only one that's like, oh, hold on. Let's look at this a little bit more closely before we just go jumping into these people's arms and saying, we're back. So.
It's a great visual shorthand, but they shouldn't even be doing that after the pilot, because when they get back to the world where his dad's still alive, they do the gate test. It squeaks, but they're not home. So what does that tell you?
I know.
But they have a certain amount of time. There's an economy of storytelling, and they use that because it's something that's been established, and it helps them think that they're home, and it does so very effectively in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And Matt, you like the credits, huh? The season 2.
Yeah, because for the longest time so I'll be honest, like when the second season came out, I didn't really catch most of it live. Okay. I was in college at the time, and it was airing. Was it airing on Friday nights? Second season? I know it was third season.
That I don't remember at all.
But yeah, so it was one of those things where I was busy either with the school newspaper or with my fraternity. But it was one of those things where I don't think I saw this until the summer of '96. And so I ended up buying the entire first and second season from some guy that was selling them on VHS tapes. And when it cut from the first season, he didn't include any of the opening credits. So I didn't actually hear the second season opening credits until I think it was airing on when they were doing the sci-fi reruns in the run-up for season 4. Okay. And I was so jazzed. It's so 90s, with like that long guitar, but it's the one that really gives you an idea of what the premise of the series is about. Like the first season is that weird,
Mark Mothersbaugh,
the Mark Mothersbaugh thing, and it's the saga cell is so short, but this one actually tells you what it's about.
Right.
And then the third season is that weird Danny Lux kind of like soft, I don't know, but it's so energizing and fun, and like the music for this particular season was really sharp between Stephen Graziano and Anthony Marinelli. Like they really knew what they were doing, and so just being able to hear that again, it brought back a lot of feels.
Yeah.
Really quick, I referenced Google to find out like when this originally aired, and it was Friday night.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It sounded familiar too, because I remember looking forward to Friday nights, because a lot of the some of the best TV was on that night. So I
Yeah.
remember Sliders being one of them. So yeah, second season they had the Friday night slot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think it was like in May, so I was probably taking my finals at that time. So I missed
very beginning of
I missed the entire second season in first run, and
Mhm.
I'm so glad I was able to catch up on it before the third season started.
Yeah. Yeah. But we kind of mentioned also the like the nods to the previous episodes, which I really like that I think this is like the most. I think it's like what, 4 episodes we got nods to here throughout, like
Yeah.
Eggheads later on, and then like he's talking about Fever and Last Days, and it's like even Arturo's being so modest there. Like, well, all I did was jury rig the detonator. The fissional material
Yeah.
was already there. Like, stop being so modest.
and that's definitely something that Tormé did.
Yeah.
When in looking at the writers draft, like Nan Hagan, she referenced The King is Back, Summer of Love, Fever, Eggheads, Jillian of the Spirits, Invasion, Love Gods, and As Time Goes By in that scene, and then when they're down in the basement. So he knew to pick like just the fine points. There's nothing really much better than saving the Earth twice over. You don't. Yeah, and then there were a couple in the climactic showdown between the two Arturos. She throws a couple more references in, so it got a little bit over much. But yeah, they did a great job of making them seem like they did a lot of really impressive things without being too heavy-handed with references.
Yeah. I see your comment here, Matt. It's probably a good point with the confusion that maybe there should be here. Yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed today when I was rewatching it is that, as we find out, the Arturo of this world didn't slide. But if we're taking as assumed that this world more or less has the same kind of sliding jumping off point as our team, like Arturo would have been in that house with Wade and Quinn and then given up. And in early drafts of this, that's exactly what they say. So how did Arturo get out of the house? Wouldn't Mrs. Mallory have seen him leave? So when he pops back in, what's going on? Like, would there be any level of confusion on her part? And maybe not. I don't know. The pilot, she's never met Arturo prior to the pilot, so it would have been a new thing for her. But I would imagine, unless he just raced out of the house without her seeing, she might have an idea that he was still on that Earth.
I never thought about that. Yeah. And just a side note about nothing against Deanne Henry. I still prefer Linda Henning as Miss.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I know it was all.
Deanne Henry played it.
Yeah.
She played it so seriously, whereas Linda Henning, with her comedy background, she was very aloof in the pilot, and then she brings that back with The Guardian and unfortunately in Genesis.
Unfortunately. And you called us out as a possible goof that the smiley face also maybe shouldn't be on that blackboard, because it was Earth Prime where Quinn was visited by Quinn 2, unless the Quinn of this world was also visited by a Quinn double 2 on Earth double Prime as well, who also did his own thing.
Yeah.
Or what if it was the same Quinn too, who just goes around putting smiley faces on all the other Quinn's blackboards?
He's kissing all the Wades of each world.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for that. That was something that was pointed out a long time ago, but it's once you see it there, and what's crazy is that they pay so much attention to detail with that blackboard scene, but then that one little thing, it kind of undoes all the goodwill that they did, and actually looking back at what the blackboard said the first time around. Yeah, but like that's like the pickiest of nits, It's like
yeah. Oh, and you laughed, Matt, at the Rembrandt's comment?
Yeah, just because he calls out that he thought that the basement would be bigger, and if you just look at it, it's clearly not the same size as the original basement. But and I didn't know. Maybe you've seen it more recently than I have. Is it the Jillian of the Spirits basement? Like, did they just redress it? That one was
a different house.
big.
I thought that looked more like a redress for Arturo's basement. We'll get to that point later, but the Jillian of the Spirits, because the way the staircase is, it looked like they redressed it for the later scenes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, like Quinn's basement is everything in those the last couple seasons. They just they reuse it and redress it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do like the close-up on Arturo's face when he's suggesting that they keep quiet until they can achieve that remaining 5%, and that kind of hammers home his betrayal shortly thereafter, because it's like he seems like pretty serious about it, because this is you're wondering if there's something there, and he's like, now's not the time to talk about free publicity, Mr. Brown. Remy's always time to talk about free publicity. And Ms. Bombay was definitely in on it, because she looked surprised, like it was a look on her face, like, you're not supposed to be here, you're supposed to be off in seclusion somewhere, like that look on her face, like
and it's nice and subtle, because the first time you're watching it, she just looks confused because he's acting like a lunatic. But then you look back at it the second time and you go, oh no, she's keyed in because she's working with the other Arturo.
Right. Yeah. And leave it to Remy to he's talking to Artie. Leave it to him to say, he quantifies the secret of sliding to the biggest thing to happen to popular music in this century, maybe since the beginning of time. Like, of course you're going to relate this to music. That was your pacemaker, Artie.
Yeah.
Get away.
I mean, he's not wrong. If you can go to another world where there's Beatles albums that were never produced, that's huge.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I did not.
Have you guys
like that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you seen? Have you heard Everyday Chemistry?
No.
So some Beatles fan, he took a bunch of single post breakup Beatles songs and mashed them together to create this posthumous Beatles album. But the whole story behind it is that he grabbed this tape from a parallel universe.
Oh, okay. So
it sounds amazing. It's really good.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, after Remy is plotting his return to fame, this is when we get Wade calling Quinn to tell him to turn on the television. But did you notice that her phone looks a heck of a lot like the timer?
I did not notice that.
The old Motorola attack.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like Quinn's expression on his face as he's eating that sandwich, and he's just watching. It's like, and he hears the term slide. He's like it just just the way it all plays out. And
he's trying to go back for that second bite, and then he just stops.
Yeah. And so this is Mike. When I was bringing this up, when we talked about Invasion, about where do they keep all these things that they take with them on Worlds? Because he pulls out this big arrowhead. Where was he keeping that this whole time? I don't know. Yeah. And that's from a comic book, right? That's from one of the specials, I think, Blood and Splendor. They tell that story.
You know what? I'll just say yes. You know what? I was in looking back at the drafts, since this came after production timeline wise, Invasion. Initially in Tormé's drafts, he was holding up the watch that he took off the Cro-Mag.
Okay.
So it makes a little bit more sense, because he's showing literally alien technology from an Earth that's developed completely differently. I will say that, like, the Blood and Splendor comic, they advertised that as being an original story by Tracy Tormé. But when I talked to the guys that did the comics, that's not the case. They they had an idea that was similar. Then they got permission from Tormé to make it seem like it was a lost episode, but it was not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the arrowhead is cool, but you're right. Like, where, I mean, Arturo is wearing like these giant trench coats in season 2. So maybe he's got like 50 or 60 pockets in there with, arrowheads and other stuff. But
but there's not even like the slightest mention in any prior episode that they have that on them, or even a glimpse. Like, you see Arturo looking at it and he puts it in his pocket right before a slide or something, but there's like no lead up, and it's just, here you go. So I think the Cro-Mag tech would have been far better, but we all know that those watches were also tracking devices, so he might have right here.
I suspect that maybe it was also changed because Invasion was airing after. It would have made no sense. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
stupid air. Oh, this is where I
not that Fox would care. But...
I know. This is where I get hung up, especially with season 2. I've been trying to figure this out. Like, where there's a reason why we're doing this in production order, but like, I don't know if it matters. Anyway, we'll get to that later.
But Now, is this our Arturo taking the credit on television, or is it the Arturo we're calling evil Arturo of this world that somehow got his hands on this arrowhead? Maybe he got contact with the other sliders from this world, or stole it from our Arturo. But
I feel like pretty much after we see Arturo in the basement and they're talking with him, that's the last time you see the real Arturo until the confrontation at the end of the episode. Everything after that is the Arturo of this world.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, after he talks with Miss Von Beek at the.
Yes.
That was the
sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, we don't know that the Arturo that has been with the team all along had this arrowhead. That's
right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they would have known too if this had not been if they hadn't actually gone to that world.
Oh, Wade and Quinn both said he's giving away our secrets. Yeah.
And they would have said,
Also,
what arrowhead? Yeah.
That would have been one heck of a bluff for Arturo to try to pull that off right after making one of the most outrageous claims in science at that point. Like,
Right.
I discovered interdimensional travel.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I have proof, knowing that somebody's probably going to analyze that. So if
Yeah.
you're going to like try to give like painted cardboard and try to pass it off as like alternate reality tech, then that's
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that the writer's draft does a little bit better, but when you're watching the episode, Larry King seems very much on board with what Arturo is saying, whereas in the script they're throwing shade at him because this is a hell of an assertion to make. There's no proof. He doesn't have a timer that can open a wormhole on camera.
Right.
He's just basically saying this, and you have to believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
And as you see, like he doesn't have the formula. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
So if anyone called him on it, he's basically just all smoke and mirrors at this point.
Right.
Mm.
So to be on CNN and talking about this stuff, like you said, that's a heck of a bluff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're all there, and he's talking with Wade and Rembrandt, and they're like, well, the secret's out. It's not like I'm the only one. He's talking, and then he's like talking to Wade, and she says they're going to offer $1 million to serialize her journal. Is this the last time we actually hear about the journal? I think I don't hear about it for the rest of the series.
It comes up again in The Prince of Slides.
Oh, it does.
The one where Rembrandt gets pregnant. Yeah,
Right.
they use her journal as a framing device.
Oh, okay, okay. So they do.
But,
they do keep this thread. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it comes up every once in a while, but it's few and far between. I think between Luck of the Draw and The Prince of Slides, the journal is only referenced here.
Okay.
I don't recall it being referenced elsewhere. But what's funny is that they do refer to it as Wade's World in the script.
Oh. Yeah. And I like it, like the way she hits him, like after he leaves, like it's just a shove.
Yeah.
Doesn't he kind of stick out his lower lip at her?
Yeah, something like he's like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sorry, hey.
I do like how they're back at the lamplighter, even though they don't need to go to a hotel. They just decided to go to the lamplighter to hang out.
The same thing.
Complete with the VLT noises in the background. It's that same scene we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
What's VLT?
Oh, the video lottery terminal, I think is what it stands for. That doodly-doo-doo.
From Time Again in World.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is that the same hallway that they show in As Time Goes By, where he's trying to rescue Dalen? Like that the color of those walls is very specific, and it looks just like where he's rescuing the Dalen from the second world, from the abusive boyfriend.
I think so. Did that come up? I don't remember if that came up or not. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you guys been to
before though? Mm-hmm.
Have you been to the Lamplighter in Vancouver? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Dominion Hotel is long gone though at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we got our first clue that they're not home because the Niners clocked the Jets in Super Bowl 19. Now, I guess if they're sports fans, they would obviously know. Oh yeah, no, Quinn is definitely he knows what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about, but
yeah,
it's like they all think he's misremembering. Is this like an early example of the Mandela effect? Is like there are people out there in the world who still claim that Sinbad starred in a movie called Shazam. So it's like that should also be a if they ever reboot Sliders, that's got to be something that they do.
Yeah, Sinbad could be reading a Berenstain Bear book.
Yeah.
With an EI. So this is a good this is a good way of showing how it's a little bit more obvious, like the changes, because in earlier drafts, the only difference is that Joe Montana has a different number on his jersey. So it goes from 16 to 15, which is really inside baseball or inside football at this point. Like it would be easy for Rembrandt and Wade not to know what Joe Montana's jersey number is if they weren't a huge 49er fan.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a sports person, so I don't know.
Well, my parents are like rabid 49ers fans, so I grew up knowing Joe Montana's number very well.
Okay. Yeah. So that thief when Quinn comes back to his house, that is not Arturo. That cannot be Arturo.
I could not agree more.
That thief was too spry and athletic to be John Rhys Davies. Yeah. So
jumps over a fence.
Yeah, right.
It's the wrong size, but he's also the wrong size for Miss Von Beck. So I don't know who it could have been, but
they just hired somebody.
Was it stated earlier that Arturo had other assistants?
I don't think
so. No, at least so in the scripts they talk about how Quinn is his research assistant, which I'd never heard before and isn't brought up elsewhere. But I mean, Quinn's not obviously stealing from his own house.
Right.
And I don't know. They must have hired someone, but then now you've got another party involved in this. It's meant to be Arturo, I believe, because the script, like the stage instructions, say that they're gonna film this in shadow so that you can't tell who it is. But it's definitely not someone of
the way
John's size.
Hop that fence. Without breaking stride, he hopped the fence, and got straight to the. It's like there's no.
Yeah, and he drives that van like he's a GTA 5. Just tears out of there.
Yeah, Eric, you had a comment.
Most likely, it probably was just somebody else Arturo knew. Like, hey,
probably.
I'll let you in on this. Somebody who wanted, maybe in on the action. So Arturo said, "Here you go. You go get this for me." And
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you had a note here, Eric, that you said this would have been like, that you would have liked to see that part expanded on.
Yes, that should have been maybe near the end, where maybe you saw Arturo talking to someone. And it's a brief conversation like, next time you go running into someone's house or something like that. And then the conversation's interrupted. He's like, we'll talk later. But it's just enough of a reference to where it's like, maybe that was the guy that was in there. It should have been addressed in some way because obviously it wasn't Arturo. Couldn't have been the Quinn of that world because that Quinn was already off sliding somewhere. So it would have been nice if he was talking to a student or one of his students, or maybe Wing from the pilot. Maybe he had.
So in one of the drafts that I read, the scene where Quinn and Wade confront Arturo at the university, and he shows them the postcard and all that, that originally took place at his house. And when they come, they are interrupting him having a conversation with Miss Von Beck, and Arturo does say something like, "Can you go address that thing we just talked about?" So there could be an inference that she was the person in the suit, or in the like she was the one that conducted the theft. But yeah, it's like it's clearly not her in that outfit either. So it's what are you gonna do? But to your point, they did try to address that at least a little bit. And then when they moved the location out from the house to the university, they just got rid of Miss Von Beck from the scene.
Oh, okay.
So for me, they give this. There's a couple different times. They say that they're there for 2 weeks. The scripts say that they're there for 2 weeks and 4 days. And I just say, like, Sliders blows their timeline all the time. Like, if you look at my writing partner, Mike Truman, he is constantly referencing in his reviews how bad they are with identifying and sticking with how long they're supposed to be on any given world. They do a pretty good job with it here. But it's a tough dance because they have to be there long enough that they can have all these things happen to them in a good way. But they can't be there too long where they see things like the Azure Gate Bridge. And when you're in San Francisco, unless you're out by where the bridge is, you can go and not see it. But there's a lot of things happening in 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks. And it's dialed back a little bit in the writer's draft. Like Wade's her publishing stuff isn't quite as far along, but for Rembrandt to get booked on a TV show, for her to have like a movie going, and for her stuff to be like published in magazines and newspapers, and for Arturo to have like this whole exhibit set up, it strains the timeline. And so
Yeah.
it's not that bad. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that, wow, they really had to thread a needle tightly.
Yeah.
So
And-
maybe
Yeah.
it would have made more sense maybe if they were on that world for a month. It
Yeah.
would have given more room for Rembrandt to have that deal, for Wade's journal to be serialized, and for all the other events to unfold the way it should, especially with how quickly Arturo seemed to gain popularity. First it was skepticism, and then immediately it was, hey, you know, look what he discovered, and everybody seemed to like readily buy into it. So
Yeah.
within 2 weeks, yeah, I can agree that that's a bit of a time constraint. So I mean, the Sliders have stayed on Worlds for like what, a month before, so that's nothing like
6 weeks they've stayed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. When he ran for mayor, that was a month and a half, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's again, these are the pickiest of nits. I was thinking about it today as I was watching it, going, wow, they were really able to get these people out there into the zeitgeist in such a short amount of time.
Right.
And you know, for Rembrandt, that makes sense. You really want to capitalize on this newfound fame. But like for Wade to be able to do that stuff, for Arturo to have that massive bronze statue, smelted and put into a museum, it's a crazy tight timeline.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. On the note with Rembrandt, I did like hearing the "Cry Like a Man" thing again. I enjoyed that. It just the way he's saying, "Oh, you got to increase the whatever it was."
The vibrato,
saying.
right?
I need to hear the part where I'm starting to like cry tears or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, poor Quinn. Like nobody's believing him, but and then the the big reveal is there with the Azure Gate Bridge, and we see it. And it finally clicks. Although before we get to that, Matt, you had this you had a really good point about the alternate Wade.
Yeah. It's just philosophical things, and it's just me looking back at the pilot and going, all right, the reason why our team didn't make it home is because they landed on an extremely bizarre world where an ice tornado was bearing down on them. And I'm just wondering, this isn't really, again, this is not a nit. It's just like, I'm wondering what the Quinn, Wade, and Rembrandt of this world landed in it, that they also were able to, that they were forced to advance the timer and not be able to return.
I never thought of that.
On the topic of Wade, I thought her reaction when she was finally faced, when she saw the Azure Gate Bridge, and there was no ignoring it for her anymore. Maybe in the back of her mind, she kind of knew. And it was easier to dismiss, but when you're faced with the facts head on, she had like no other like reaction left, so she just had her breakdown. I thought that was actually one of the better like scenes in the story, because it was just real.
Yeah, it was so emotional. She really sells that 100%.
It broke my heart. I was like, oh my god. I was like, I think every time I see that, I tear up a little bit. It's such a good scene. Yeah.
Yeah, although it does beg the question, so they know that they're not home now. Why can't they stay on this world and use this as a base of operations? And I know obviously it's because this is an episodic TV show and they have adventures to take. But in Eggheads, they are, Quinn is excited because he thinks they can auto set the system, which means that they could return to home. If they can get access to Quinn's sliding device there, they could return home.
Right.
And in John Povel's draft of that, the reason why they don't is because in the first draft, the Quinn and Arturo of that world are actually off sliding, so they don't want to interrupt their adventure, because if they did, then it would stop. Then they wouldn't be able to get home. But I don't see why they couldn't. And in earlier drafts of this, Quinn straight up says that if they were to build a timer on this world, it would be tethered to this world as their home base. Okay, so what? So have stay here. Go for a jaunt, like go for an hour jaunt every couple days. See if you're on your own home world. If you're not, then you come back.
Yeah.
You've got all the fame and the money and the resources to use this as a base of operations.
The only thing, though, I mean, this kind of actually goes back, I think, to Summer of Love, where they started to introduce the arc of the government taking an interest because they're investigating, missing persons reports, and then they meet with Benish, and then they find out about Quinn's video journal. Establishing like a base of operation on any other world, I mean, eventually wouldn't you get like the attention of the government, and then they would try to step in and try to throw a wrench into your plan. So I think either way, we're like doomed from the start.
Mhm.
Well, but the secret's out here. They
Yeah.
they know
Right.
what's going on,
Yeah.
and there were, and in one of the drafts before this was slotted to go after Invasion, there was a line about how Quinn doesn't suspect Arturo at first as being involved in the break-in, but he does think that it could have been the FBI or federal or foreign governments or the Cro-Mags. So
Hmm.
when Wade is talking with Rembrandt about Quinn's losing his mind, they do specifically reference government involvement as people who would have been involved in the theft of his technology.
Mm. Ah, interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. But we went with that scene with Wade to the whole thing with Arturo and that like the smugness on his face and just like
Yeah.
the way John Rhys Davies performed that. He must have loved playing that dark side, and he was just like, I think this is like one of his best scenes in the entire series too. It's just the way he's like so like I say it later. He's like, you're gonna do what you need to do, but then so will I. Like this was like
And what I like about it is that this scene actually made me think that it was the real Arturo for a moment, because there's this scene in El Cid where Arturo is selling out the sliders to give Sid and the custodian the timer so that he can leave, and it's played the exact same way. He is thinking about himself first and foremost. He is a survivalist, and he does ultimately, like you said, he'll do what he can to affect his own survival. And so when he was acting like that, and everything he's saying is so true, Quinn's mom is there, Wade's parents are there, they've got success back home. Wade was a no one. Why wouldn't they stay? And everything he's saying, it makes perfect sense, and it's perfectly in line with his character, and that's why it actually brought me back around to thinking this might actually be the real Arturo, or at the time when we didn't know that there were two Arturos, it made me think, wow, this Arturo's a bit of a douche.
Yeah.
The one thing I am surprised that none of the characters, this is more like a minute, like nitpick, if that. It's where once they realize they're not on their home world, but a close copy, none of them thought for a minute, well, one of our doubles return. Because we don't know if they're stranded or, you only go off of what Arturo says, but then again, he's being evil. Are you really going to believe anything else he says thereafter? He could be doing that for like misdirection. So they could stay there, but wouldn't there be a concern of what if our doubles show up and there's two of everyone? Then there's real chaos. So, I was kind of hoping when I originally watched it that something would be mentioned like that. But then again, like Matt said, and this is episodic television, you only have so much story to tell in 45 minutes. So.
Yeah.
That could have been a way to resolve the episode, where instead of having the duel between the two Arturos, the Quinn, Wade, and Rembrandt of this world return. Yeah. And so now that situation has presented itself. I'm like, all right, well, now we really do need to go.
Now we have to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that this line hurts now, knowing what's coming down the road when Wade is like we'll make it home, like because Quinn's like I can't guarantee we'll ever get us home. Like, no, spoiler. People watching this, I think they know they're watching it along with us. Assuming we assume that you've seen the show, so
it's literally been 30 years, right?
Yeah. Okay, so Rembrandt's backup singers. So. Was that not supposed to be Maurice Fish? Because it just seems like such a waste to bring the actor back and not have him be the same character.
Right.
All right.
So what happened with Maurice Fish was that he was, if you see the full video of the Cry Like a Man video, you can see that actor, Tom Pickett, in the background. He's one of the background guys.
Right.
And then when The King is Back was getting into production, if you read earlier drafts of that, it's not Maurice Fish. It's some like super fan called the Crying King or something like that.
Okay.
And so when they cast Tom Pickett in that role, they realized, oh, why don't we just make him into an actual top? So they switched gears on the script and turned it into Maurice. So for this one, because you're right, like he's Leroy, he's credited as Leroy in the credits, right? The script actually says that Maurice Fish refuses to be a part of the process, right? So they've got this MTV Unplugged event, and Maurice Fish is not going to be in it, but the other two tops, you've got Sebastian Smith and Leroy, whatever, they're there. And so when they cast Tom Pickett as Leroy, but they didn't say his name, so you can just assume he's Maurice Fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same actor for across 3 different roles, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I just, it was like something I was like, that's him. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
So yeah. So then Quinn is looking at the timer in the museum, and he says that they only have 30 seconds left. So did none of them really ever seriously actually look at the timer? I feel like there were times when like even in the basement when they first got there, Arturo was looking at it, giving it to Quinn. It's like, did nobody notice the time that it said on there? Did they were right earlier? It was like less than 24 hours. They saw the timer replica in the museum. Did she not notice the time then? Like,
she probably did.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that they do say at the top of the episode they're going to be here for over 2 weeks. So just you should be able to extrapolate from there how close you are.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not necessarily going to be within 5 minutes, but you at least know the day. So yeah, it's one of those things where they fudge the timelines a lot. So I'm not surprised that they do stuff like this, but they did definitely mention it earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
Well, I do love that part where the timer flips over and it's a fake out. It's a replica. That was good. I was expecting some tense, we have to slide right now, but nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was talking about this earlier with Damon. There's probably a deleted scene. It's one that went from the writer's draft all the way to the final draft that I have, which was a couple weeks later. So the way that Quinn and Wade are supposed to get the timer is that they buy tickets to go into the museum, and then they hang out until after it's closed. And then he uses some fishing hook thing that he's got to trip the alarms over and over again so that the guards get so frustrated that they turn it off. And when they do, then they go and they take the box off of the timer, but there's a second alarm attached to that. And so they get caught anyway. And it just seemed like they spent like 3 or 4 pages in these scripts trying to make this happen. And it just seems crazy that they did all of that work just to get caught anyway. So I can see why it didn't make it into the finished product, but because it was in every version of the script that I saw, I would not be surprised if there is footage for that event, for that sequence that just didn't get into the final version.
Kind of funny.
I was thinking though, on the note of the false timer, I don't know what else to call it, like the replica.
Yeah.
I think they could have done maybe just a little bit more with it. Maybe
sure.
Arturo swapped it out. Maybe he had more than one replica made, knowing that the sliders are probably going to at some point find where the timer was or figure it out, come get it, only for it to be another replica or something.
Yeah.
If they were able to make it work in the story, I just felt like there was something a little bit more they could have done with the replica.
Yeah.
Or just have him give them a replica.
Well, oh, you want the timer? Here you go. And have it count down, and then when it hits 0, it just resets to 24.
Yeah. Then he's back in Grass Valley, and they have no idea where he is.
Yeah. So we get back to that with the doctor's office, and it's like now we're actually seeing like the doctor tells Miss Jennings to call Gate Haven Hospital. That's the same. What Wade said in Invasion, right? That it's supposed to be a mental institution.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, she mentioned that. Yeah. And I said it before. What was with that hairdo? I don't get that with the receptionist.
That has been cracking me up since 1996.
Yeah.
I don't know why her hair is so teased up like that, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, is this like an indication of what alternate world they're on? Like, it seemed like it seemed like it should be like an indication of something, but like I don't know what.
Every woman has Marge Simpson hair, and every office building has a fireplace.
And that, so we're basically now at like what I think is like one of the best scenes in the whole episode, where they're breaking into Arturo's house, and then Wade notices the bifocals. Like, I never knew the professor wore bifocals before.
Yeah.
So I thought that was supposed to be like something that we were going to be hinting at later on with, because if he definitely is not wearing bifocals in Invasion, which was
right
before this, but if you watch it afterwards, he is, so it's like, but it's something I want to keep my eye on if he actually is wearing bifocals later on or not. I feel like we've seen it, but like afterwards. I don't remember.
It's a specific call out.
Yeah.
It's begging you to pay attention to that in future episodes. Like Tormé was notorious for planting these little seeds.
Yeah.
And And he was the one that added that line. Like, that did not exist in
Okay.
Nan Hagan's draft.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nan's draft had this wild thing where Arturo has hidden the timer inside this TV that Arturo has converted into some kind of like safe,
Mm-hmm.
where they open up. He's got an old cathode ray tube TV, and you open up the screen, and that's where he's hidden the timer.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been neat.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
But it fell more in line with Professor's character, like how he thought. And
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course the professor then goes on a rant about television.
Oh.
I would never use this TV for anything else, kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. So Erik, you had some notes here with this about, what you feel with the, your thoughts on the chained up Arturo and all this stuff. So.
with the chained up Arturo, I was wondering if that was actually really supposed to be the Arturo of that world, and the one who was coming down the stairs was in fact our Arturo.
Right.
And because he makes a reference to Wade's serialized diary,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but how would he know if he was like chained up?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt very seriously the other Arturo would just sit down and have a casual conversation, getting him caught up to speed on what everybody's doing.
Giving him some light reading material.
Right. That was just like a tip off to me. It's like, well, wait, how would he know if he's been chained up all that week? So it's
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that the Arturo that was on the stairs was in fact the real Arturo, because even he makes that comment, and he thinks the sun rises and sets for him. He's like, sounds like Arturo.
Sounds like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. No, it's a good call.
Yeah.
And I guess as you continue your rewatch, be on the lookout for clues. What hampers everything is, like you said, the run order.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Indino Veritas comes after this in
Yeah.
production order, right?
Right.
But did it air before this?
It aired before. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are the three
So-
episodes
I
that are
thought
like
Obsession came after.
in
Obsession
aired order.
was
Obsession
eighth.
came after this. Yeah. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so you can't look, you can't, well, you should be able to. If you use the production order, you should be able to identify clues, because then, as you'll see in Indino Veritas, there's some indicators that they might be traveling with the right or the wrong Arturo. It could go either way. But that whole idea about him knowing about Wade's serialized diary, that's such a tip off
mm-hmm.
that the wrong Arturo is the one that's chained up.
Yeah.
And I will say that in earlier drafts, at least in Nan's draft, the way that it works is they both have answers, but they're not the ones that say that it's the diary. I think one of the other sliders is the one that mentions the diary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite as obvious. That doesn't mean that, I mean, Nan tips her hand in a lot of other ways that I'll talk about in a few minutes, but
Yeah.
It's definitely something that makes you go, wow, they definitely took the wrong Arturo with them.
Well, that's what I've been trying to like figure out for 30 years. I'm like, it has to be, 'cause it's such a.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Erik.
It's the.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I was
that's
just
fine.
thinking that when he's standing on the stairs and he's having the exchange with the other Arturo, it's like, it's a disgrace, sir, to think we share a genetic common structure.
Yeah.
And it's like that right there tells me like this is the real Arturo, because he has said similar things before, and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
in the heat of the moment. So it's like,
I think that's the Arturo in any world, though.
I know.
Yeah. Does Arturo have any good doubles? Maybe the double and double cross? Because
probably.
I mean, there's Sheriff Arturo. He
Right,
is
right.
not a good guy.
The
Right.
Russian general. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Russian general. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prince of Wales. No.
Yeah. I mean, I love this face off between the two of them, and this is like, he had, like I said, he had to be having so much fun with this. I think in real life, this is like what John Rhys Davies wanted to be doing. It was just, and it really is hard to tell them apart. I mean,
Yeah.
because
He did a really good job with it.
yeah,
Yeah,
like we said, the
absolutely.
whole thing is like he thinks he's an ego. What did he say? He's a self-aggrandizing, malcontented egomaniac who thinks that the sun rises and sets for him. Like, it sure sounds like Arturo. It's like, he's not wrong. He really is not. But yeah, and then he knocks him out, and I just think like poor Mrs. Mallory. It's I mean, she, just, why can't you stay until like Mike comes home? It's like, it doesn't work that way. He's like, it's okay. You're exactly like my mom too. And I'm thinking, well, no, she looks completely different. She's not exactly like
My mom is played by Linda Hennig.
Yeah.
Quinn's mom is played by you.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was just a little. I just always think that I'm like, no.
Yeah, and so this part of the scene is where I was talking about earlier, where it would have been nice if there was a little bit more time where they could have had something a little bit more meaningful, an aside with Wade and her parents, just so that she could say something similar to Quinn, but in her voice, so that they can kind of get an idea of what's going on. I mean, they all see the wormhole, so they know kind of the scope of what's happening, but Rembrandt doesn't really have anyone. He's got Artie. Artie knows about it. But, Quinn and Wade should be able to have some kind of meaningful, familial goodbye.
Yeah.
Well, and in earlier drafts, they actually switched some of this stuff around, where Mrs. Mallory is actually the one that bails them out of jail with Rembrandt.
Oh, okay.
And that's when Quinn has his goodbye with her. And while he's doing that, Wade is on the phone in the background telling Kelly to tell her parents that what's going on.
Right.
So it's still rushed. I mean, it makes more sense that it's here, but it's at least a little bit more. Like, you get a little bit more of that familial connection.
Yeah.
And then the big confrontation. Well, there is no confrontation originally. They just knock out Arturo, and then they slide from his front yard.
Oh.
That's
interesting.
The race at the end where the other Arturo comes in the taxi and they get into the beef in front of the Mallory's yard. That was all added by Tormé after Nan submitted her draft.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, Mike, you had something to say about the...
Well, did they say there were 17 minutes until the slide? And then they had all that time to get to Quinn's house and reunite with Wade's parents? And
yeah, in 1996, where there are no cell phones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, again,
just stopped at a phone booth.
The timelines don't always line up with what we see on TV. But...
And that's what's so frustrating about this show, because they don't need to have it be like this. They can say we've got an hour to the slide, and that gives the other Arturo time to wake up. It's like, why? I guess because then you have an escalation, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, if any of you have been to San Francisco, you don't go anywhere in 17 minutes.
Well, this is the scene that's had everybody, like all fans, debating and theorizing for 30 years. Because even if you think you know which Arturo accompanied them out of the basement, there's no way to know once they start fighting. You completely lose track of them at that point.
Yeah,
but
because they cut away from it, and then you don't know who's the one that's on the ground and who's the one that's rolling around.
And they're both wearing the exact same clothes, even though one of them was down there sweaty for like the better part of a week or whatever, like since Monday week.
I remember I watched the original broadcast, and I remember sitting right front of the screen. I'm trying to track which one. I was putting my finger on the screen. I'm like, okay, I know this is the real one. I'm trying to keep it, but then when they do the jump cuts, I'm like, no, I lost.
They're both saying the same thing: scoundrel, knave. Like, no.
Yeah.
I remember just touching the screen. My dad literally was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
I had to count the Arturos. Which one is which?
I just love that they both call each other knave.
I know.
That's such an Arturo word, It's out of nowhere.
When this happened, at the time, I was super excited for this. I was like, I saw this. I'm like, oh my, wow, they're going somewhere with this. Like, oh, this is going to be so great, because they were leaning so heavily into this. Like, they have to be following up with this somehow. We're going to go for a while with the wrong one. But unfortunately, that's just not what Fox wanted to do. This is a gold mine of a plot line that they had, and they just didn't know what to do with it. Not to spoil anything for you, Mike, but Fringe did this a lot better.
Oh, okay.
And
you've not watched Fringe?
I
no,
watched Fringe,
no.
Oh, yeah, you got to watch that, man. At least the first 4 seasons.
Yeah.
I forget where I heard it from. It might have been one of the bulletin boards from way back in the day. Back when we still used bulletin boards on the internet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There was the entire discussion, and I remember hearing at some point that Tormé actually did answer the question, which Arturo slid in a season 3 episode.
So there's a whole
I
theory.
think it was.
No, he didn't out and out say it until I asked him a couple years ago.
Okay.
The theory in season 3, and you guys can watch for this, is that all of a sudden Arturo is begging to be left behind all the time. So like it starts with rules of the game. When he's blinded, he's like, I want, just leave me. And so you can look for that as kind of, he's being cowardly. Like he didn't sign up for this. He did not know what he was getting into, and he wants out.
Yeah.
So there are other clues that are peppered throughout the 3rd season, but Tormé left pretty early on into the production for 3rd season. Like he was there for a couple months, and then he tapped out when Mel Tormé got sick.
Yeah.
So anything after that would be just serendipitous.
Right.
The other production they did not care. They were not thinking about that stuff.
I do have a question for you, Matt. Season 3 episode, The Guardian.
Yeah.
Professor makes a comment. I just saw my first American football game. But yet,
that's
earlier. I think it was season 1 with the.
It's Summer of Love.
Yes, he identifies the play that Quinn's going to do. So I wonder if that was intentional or just a oversight in writing.
It was definitely intentional. I think there was a Dragon Con interview where someone asked Tormé that, and as that was a script that was written by Tormé, you could definitely see that as being like a canon event for whether or not it was the right Arturo.
Wow.
Yeah, he used it as leverage in case because Fox wanted him off the show, John wanted off the show. He only came back at the 11th hour for the 3rd season, so they were using that as a possibility of if we need to get him off, we can just say that the wrong Arturo slid, or they could bring him back at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one of those things where Tormé probably had ideas about it, but after he left in the 3rd season, he wasn't really thinking too much about sliders. Like he had that heat of the moment script that he was working on, and then after Fox canceled the show, he was in a power play to try and wrestle control back from Universal, but because David Peckinpah was still on a contract, they just kept him for the Sci-Fi Channel era. But he did have ideas, and if you look at the interview that I did with him on Earth Prime, he did talk about some of the stuff that he had in mind. Nothing, it was just very surface level, like the right professor comes back, but toward the end, I don't know if it was intentional at the beginning whether or not the right Arturo slid or not, but by the time he was thinking about it in 2009, he was definitely of the opinion that the wrong Arturo was the one that went with him at the end of this episode.
Definitely needs a revival. The other shows got a revival. Quantum Leap got theirs. It's time for Sliders to have their revival. And from what I heard, Jerry O'Connell and John Rhys Davies are both on board.
I think they ran into each other at a convention or something, and they were talking about it.
Yeah.
Something with they didn't know exactly who would the rights holders. I think it was was it NBC and like Universal or something like that. Like they weren't 100% sure who owned the rights to Sliders, but they wanted to get it off the ground. So, and Jerry O'Connell's active on X. Like he will talk about it like to the fans, and so he says, "I'm still for it." John Rhys Davies is still for it. It's just trying to, I guess, get the finer details ironed out.
Isn't it funny that the two actors that wanted off the show the most now want to bring it back? The most?
Yeah, we're jumping ahead in notes a little bit, but so what was so in that interview you because he mentioned something about with the Chromags and how he would have done it, like if you bring them back, because this is where I'm trying to figure out, does the air date matter? Does the air date order matter, or is the production order that would matter in that? Because it can go either way.
Yeah, and to his credit, like Tormé he worked on other projects. He was not as he was not as devout as I would say as we were in terms of like thinking about how things would play out.
Right.
He got the timelines a little confused because he was like, if you look at that interview, he says that like depending on where Invasion ran in the order, like originally Invasion was going to be the season finale, right. But then later on he contradicts himself and says that it ran before them. So he definitely had ideas. And if you look at Earth Prime, the Ibrahim, he wrote an episode called Slide Effects, like a script that that was a play on the story ideas from what he would have done if he had rebooted with season 4, which is that like everyone wakes up, they're home, everything seems normal, and then it's all a Cro-Mag mind game.
Right.
He didn't get more specific than that, but yeah, like I would just say the Cro-Mags, whether or not it's the Cro-Mags or whether or not it's the Red Arturo, you can divorce one from the other and just kind of figure out which one in your head canon is how it works out, you know?
Yeah. Well, because it was supposed to be that Arturo was supposed to be the one, I think, originally that had the homing device, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's one that I
Arturo
really don't
has
know.
the homing device. Is it the or how? If it's production order, then it's the real Arturo,
Right.
But then how do they? Apparently, Arturo would have used that to find a way back to be reunited with them. But
yeah,
how is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there being like a rumor or like a theory that because Arturo got sick, that it was because of something that it was the implant that happened from the Cro-Mags. But there was never anything that corroborated that. And then in the 4th season, they said that it was implanted in Quinn. So
I know it was moot by then. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What could have been in an alternate reality somewhere.
Exactly.
I mean, we're basically at the end. So, I mean, if you want to have your thoughts on this, Mike, with what you thought.
Well, I really wanted to believe that our Arturo was the one who slid in the end. I'm going to have to watch it again to really form a solid conclusion. But I just don't understand why the evil one would want to go. He was apparently too chicken to go with the sliders of this group or of this world.
Yeah.
But he would also be missing out on all the fame and fortune and everything coming to him from being revealed as the so-called father of interdimensional travel. So I don't see his motivation for leaving and then leaving this other Arturo to take all the fame and glory. Yeah. But at least if it was the evil Arturo that slid, we already talked about this. I would love to have seen a future one where the real one gets rescued and reunited. But,
yeah. Mm-hmm. I will add that there was a coda in the writer's draft that spells it out a little bit more, that it was, or at least gives another indication that it was the wrong Arturo that went with them. So if you remember at the beginning of the episode, when Rembrandt is talking about how they slide onto Earth Double Prime, and Rembrandt shoots out of the vortex and nails Arturo in the back, or like lands on him.
Slow motion scene.
So, exactly, which is awesome. So Arturo is like, next time you go first, right?
Yeah.
So then in Nan's draft, there's a scene after the doctor is carted off in the straitjacket where they land on the next world, and Arturo's like, I will happily let you land on me anytime. So then Rembrandt's looking at him like, what is this nonsense? This does not track with what I just saw.
Nice.
Yeah. So the way that the episode ends, it ends on a much stronger note. But if you're looking for ways to bookend an episode, having one scene call back to the other it's pretty good storytelling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to add? Sorry.
So what I'll do is, since we've talked a lot about the writer's draft, I'll throw it up online. I've done a couple different writer draft things, like with Raging Quinn and with the first draft of Time Again in World. I'll do one for this to correspond when you drop this out.
Oh, okay.
So that people can see they can read the writer's draft for themselves.
Oh, okay. I'll be sure to link to that then. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I've been meaning to get all this stuff out anyway. But there are some things in it that are definitely more psychological. Like the way that Arturo plays his defense of inventing sliding, it really does call into question whether or not Quinn is telling the story, like if he's a reliable narrator or not. And so it helps add some of that uncertainty to the scenario where, like, is Arturo just out of his mind? Is Quinn out of his mind? And then just the way that the 4th act, some of the scenes are swapped around, it does create a different kind of feel for how the sliders leave this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Erik, you want to have anything? These are kind of like our closing thoughts. We have all at the end.
Yeah.
Well,
but you have yours.
I think I included this part in the notes, but I always wondered if it was our Arturo that got left behind, what would the rest of his life have been like on that? In that world? Like, wouldn't it have been like he's disgraced because he couldn't replicate the experiment when it came time for like maybe a live demonstration? I mean, you can only bluff somebody for so long before they finally catch on. Like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So, what would life have been like? It's just something to think about. You know?
Yeah.
What would life have been like for that Arturo who's stuck on that world?
He dusts himself off of the Mallory lawn. He walks into up those stairs down into that basement and takes a picture of that blackboard.
Yeah.
And he's like, "All right, I'll see you in a couple of months. I'm off to Grass Valley again."
Yeah.
Yeah, what makes it such a good hour of television is that it makes you think about those questions.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, something like Electric Twister Acid Test. You're not thinking about that episode after it's come and gone.
No.
But this one, it lives rent free in all of our heads, and it has for decades now.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good storytelling.
Mike, you're probably like, what's Electric Twister Acid Test? You probably don't remember.
Is that
I
the
don't
one with
remember.
Corey Feldman where he guessed?
Yeah.
They did that handshake they did in Stand By Me. It was like a little subtle nut. Yep.
Thing that Tracy Tormé.
I recognize that handshake. I'm like, that's Stand By Me. Like, yep.
Yeah.
It's one of the essential episodes, you know.
The last thing I'll add in this is just I think even that final scene with the doctor is just he's got some good dialogue there too. He's talking about, you see he's like licking his lips. He's like it's such a term in its simplicity, but like just the way he's being carried off in his straitjacket. And he's like, I feel a little confined. It's just like this was just such a great,
overly poetic about seeing a vortex.
Yeah. And I felt bad for him at the end, even though he was trying to get Remy committed. But still, like it's a reasonable thing to assume he's just nuts. But I mean, there's so much potential. This is such a perfect episode of Sliders. I think it really is. It's
like the second season, it started off a little slow, but man, they were hitting all cylinders by the end.
They were building to this with like throughout several episodes we've been talking about it. That just like, you know, the little hints that Arturo was getting fed up with Quinn and all of this stuff, and just that he was jealous of him, and so it really just felt like a season finale that we're building up to this something. So
definitely, I'd say season 2 is peak Sliders.
Yeah.
And
everyone.
Yeah, because season 3 is more like action oriented and one off from the movie, and it's like, season 2 is where they really exemplified like what sliding is and what the journey's about. So this is why I think another reason post-traumatic slide syndrome is just, it resonates with a lot of fans, just because the emotional weight of the story, exactly, you see how it impacts the characters, which Arturo slid. It's just, that was where Sliders was their strongest.
And it's such a simple concept, you know. What if they're almost home? No high concept nonsense, you know. After episodes like what if the West but Texas, you know, but San Francisco, it's some weak entries like that, but just taking, and this story could have gone wrong in so many ways. They could have really done a poor execution of what if they were almost home. But they really leaned into the characters, and at that point they were 20 episodes in, so they could trust the characters to be themselves and really tell that story in a way that was personal to them and also made sense within the series proper.
All right, I think we've exhausted our discussion. I don't think there's anything much more to say. I mean, we could just get into our little goofs and the lines and our final ratings, I guess. So our goofs. Sure. I mean, Matt,
my favorite goof, and I call it a goof because if you look at earlier drafts, this takes place in a different location. Wade, who is a 23-year-old service clerk, has the most badass 2-story loft I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and she's managed to pay rent on it for a year and a half without having to live. In earlier drafts, it's at her parents' house, which makes sense, but. And just that location with the assistant and the stairs leading up out of frame, and it's just an amazing loft that no one that age with that income who's been gone for 18 months should be able to live in.
Yeah. I don't even think I realized that was her loft. I thought it was just like it was something that she got from her publishing deal or something. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, you're right. She did seem to be living there. So
that's kind of a common thing with a lot of shows from the 90s, where you have a main character who works like a minimum wage job, but it's like Married to Children. He was a shoe salesman, but Al Bundy had a very nice house.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you like make that sort of thing work? So I think that was just kind of something that was a given for all TV shows from the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what else you got, Matt?
It was just the smiley face.
Yeah,
and
we'll
then,
mention that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, like, how could you really not see the Golden Gate Bridge? But truthfully, you can live in San Francisco and not see the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's, like I said, these are the pickiest of nits. It's just the CGI window that she looks through is really poorly done.
Yeah.
And the only
it looks like a.
I'll give them credit.
Yeah.
In earlier drafts, it was that scene took place outside. So they walk outside the museum, and then that's when they see the I mean, for her to turn around from the phone booth in the museum to see that window. The window moves.
Well, I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be a window or a video screen that she was looking at.
I think that's the worst part of this episode is that screen.
Then they didn't really color retime the bridge perfectly. You can still see the red outline. You know, it's like it's. But you know, for the 90s, you know, we're looking at it on definition televisions.
Especially when shown on a CRT set, we didn't have high def. It probably looked more realistic. So that's the downside with doing high def re-releases of popular shows. You start to see the little flaws.
And then
the one I had was, if Bernie Massey's car was rear-ended 18 months ago, why is it still on the road and not repaired?
I mean, didn't you see the hood was open? Bernie was working on it.
Yeah, I guess.
It all adds up. It's perfect. Flawless.
All right, memorable lines. I really this is like a motto I pretty much live by nowadays. Like with Wade, it's like, why are you always so negative? And Arturo's like, hope for everything, Miss Wells. Expect nothing. That's me. I can relate to that completely. I'd like to be optimistic, but I know what reality is.
In 2025, Arturo has never sounded more rational.
Wow.
All of mine are around Rembrandt in this episode. He says, but who's going to believe that I've been touring in obscurity for the last year and a half? And Arturo's response kills me. Is that shouldn't be too difficult given the state of your career when we left. So the next line, Rembrandt approaches his agent and says, I've been touring Asia, to explain his absence, and Artie says, what are we talking here? Outer Mongolia? A lot of good R&B clubs there, are there?
Yeah.
The sarcasm was just great.
Yeah. And Rembrandt has interesting lines when he's talking to the psychiatrist. It kind of doesn't sound like he would say it, but he's like, best friend was going over the edge. The rest of the world was opening up to us, giving up all of the treasures. Seems kind of not something he'd say, but I don't know. It's almost like he's reading off of a script. Yeah. But it's still a good line. I love that, and the entire exchange between them when they're talking to Arturo, like when Quinn says she's not my mother, and Arturo's like, in some small measure, perhaps not, but she's as close to the real thing as you're ever gonna get. Like, oh, that's cold. And as you must do what you must do, Mr. Mallory, but then so will I. I was getting chills watching that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is just
easily one of my favorite exchanges in the series.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I got my last Rembrandt one, and they're all, of course, comedy based. But Rembrandt says, "If we all start crying, it's just going to confuse the audience." And then the backup singer, not sure which one, says, "We cry or nobody cries."
Yeah.
I love that because ultimately, Rembrandt is ready to leave because of like the pettiest stuff. You know, he doesn't want to share songwriting. Like, he doesn't want to share songwriting credit.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it. I'm out.
Yeah.
And then they come down and they see the professor chained up. Professor, what are you doing? I don't know who says it, but he's like, and then the turns like, having a tea party. What does it look like I'm doing?
We got a couple of good blistering idiots in there too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That should be a drinking game.
Yeah, I know. Every time, yeah.
He's so drunk.
I know. It's like, now I know exactly how the Israelites felt when Moses delivered them from the Pharaoh. And then, Eric, what you said before, it's a disgrace.
Yes, it's a disgrace, sir, to think that we share a common genetic structure. And the way he says it, he lifts his chin up like that, and he's like proud of himself in that moment. It was just...
Yeah.
It's like even when faced in like this, confusion with your duplicate, you still find that moment to kind of puff up your chest and get that
Exactly.
one-liner. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so haughty.
Yes.
And then Rembrandt again, he's like, "You better be the right one, man." Of course I'm the right one, you blistering idiot. Or is he? Is he the right one at this point? And you have it, Matt.
And then just when Arturo turns around and it's like it's just 80 yard in, but just oh my God, just the weight of all that. And it's not in any script. I don't know when they decided to add that in, but it punctuates everything. It does everything that it needs to do without being overt, because you could read it either way. It could be the false Arturo, just knowing that the jig is up and now he is going to be a pariah in the academic community, or it's our Arturo who has now been left behind.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't like bring attention to itself. It's just like a subtle line, and then it ends.
But it's also he turns around and has a very worried look on his face, like, oh, like it's that look like I'm stuck here. That's why you even say it on the page for this. It's like 3 little words. So much controversy, right? It's like yeah. I mean, I should end with that, but the last thing Rembrandt says is fame and fortune snatched from our clutches, condemned to wander the interdimensional vortex like nomads. This whole exchange, like, not to mention more ugly memories of mutinous tops, on top of which we've got Arturo. We don't even know which one he is. It's just this whole, again, it's like, wow. This is just such a great episode. It's just like, I don't want to stop talking about it, but
you got to get to bed, right?
Yeah, no, we need to wrap it up. All right, so we kind of had our final thoughts already. So let's just say the ratings. So Matt, you don't have you have your silly object for this, but just it's something in the episode. So should we go first, and then you see what we say?
I'll give it 10 out of 10 Wade's apartments.
Okay,
there you go.
All right, Erik.
10 visits with
10 professional
skeptical therapist.
Yeah, 10 professional visits with a skeptical therapist is what you said.
Yeah, and I gave it 10 replica timers out of 10.
And I gave it 10 Azure Gate Bridge postcards out of 10. Yeah, I don't think there was no way. I knew before we even started the podcast, Mike. I'm like, when we get to this episode, it's going to be a 10. I know it's going to be a 10. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's a 10.
There are very few episodes in this series where it's unambiguously an A+, 10 out of 10. There are some where, like The Guardian, people love that. Will give it a 10 out of 10. I will not. There are definitely flaws in a lot of stories, but this is one where I think every fan will say, no, this is where they were hitting on all cylinders. They crushed it.
Yeah.
They crushed it. Yeah.
The potential was there. So yeah. All right. So as we said, next up is In Dino Veritas. That is the next one. We are supposed to be joined by Andrew Gist. Mike, he joined us for the finale of Quantum Leap 2022 when we did the whole thing. So he's supposed to join us for that.
Andrew.
All right. So thank you guys for joining us. Erik, what else do you want to say about where people can reach you on your webpage or
Well, they can find me on Facebook, Erik Dreiling, author. Simple, straightforward. I'm always uploading new content every 3 to 5 days, keeping everyone informed of my books as well as other conventions that Jumpmaster Press takes part in. So there's always something going on. Always love to talk to the readers. So send a message.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us too.
It's been a pleasure.
I was like, oh, this is so great. Yeah. Anything else you want to tell people before we, just about the website or,
thanks to all the Sliders fans that make this such a vibrant community 30 years later. I am, like I said, I'm working on a new version of Earth Prime. I hope to get that out sometime later this year. And, look for the writer's draft for this episode on Earth Prime when this episode is live.
Oh, all right. Yeah. And any other way they can reach you or just through the email?
I am not on social media.
Yeah. So they just contact you on the website, right?
But I believe my email address is there.
Okay.
I've plenty of people. I mean, I think that's how you found me, right?
Yeah. Well, contact you.
My email address is there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Reach out to me if you want. I'm happy to talk.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. All right. You want to take us out, Mike? You might as well. You do better
Yeah,
than me.
sure. So, thanks again, Erik and Matt, for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
For those who've been watching, please be sure to like and subscribe and share your opinions in the comments below, what you felt about the episode, which Arturo slid, how could Wade afford that apartment. We'd like to hear your theories. And we do a roundup of comments in future videos. So in the meantime, you can check out our website at fandomentanglement.com. You can drop us an email, fandom.entanglement@gmail.com. We've got our Facebook group, facebook.com/fandomentanglement. We are on Blue Sky at fandomentanglement.bsky.social. And we've recently also joined Mastodon at fandomentanglement.mastodon.social.
Nice.
That's right. I need to put the
Thanks, guys.
There, yeah. All right.
It's always great to be on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Bring me back.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll.
Yeah, for sure.
Possibly.
We
very
have
Do
to
dead man sliding.
Yeah.
Double cross or dead man sliding. I'm calling dibs.
No, just wait till we get to season 3. Halfway through season 3, when you reach the Exodus.
Oh, well, I'll do that too. I'll take pleasure in my pain.
Yeah, well, let's figure out something for those. Yeah, there's definitely some episodes. I don't know how many people we're going to get for season 3, but well, anyway, yeah. All right, guys, until next time, I'm Damon.
Not Mike.
I'm Matt.
Yeah.
Erik.
All right, we'll see you then. Keep on sliding,
Everyone.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.